Here it is. This is the first time the Zip has ever seen sunlight. First time it's ever left the garage. Obviously, it's only left the garage by about 10 feet. But I pulled it out and hosed the deck down, gave it a really light scrubbing with a brand new sponge, a little bit of car wash soap, and here we are, dried it off. So it just looks awesome. Of course, the inside, you know, you can see the dust on the carlings and the seat backs. I vacuumed it out, I brushed it down, I vacuumed it out. Now I'm gonna have to get in here and detail it, but pretty dang impressed with it. It looks super nice. Just could not be happier. So it's got its first official wash job. You can see the reflection of the hose on the side here. Like a frickin' mirror. Super impressed with it. So we'll finish detailing out the inside, pull her back in, start assembly. So this is the following day. We've got the steering wheel back on, detailed the inside. Got all of our deck stainless on. You can see the light. We've got our little flag mast up here. Bow chocks, cleats, again step pads, rear cleats, rear transom light pole. I now have the, I call them door panels. I guess they're ceilings. Got the ceilings in, and what I did was I was trying to decide if I wanted to use hook and loop Velcro and do one long strip across the top and one across the bottom. What I ended up doing was one vertical strip about 2 inches from this end, one vertical strip in the middle, and then one vertical strip 2 inches from the other end. I stuck it to the back side of the ceilings, and then I stuck the other half to that Velcro, and then crawled up in there, peeled the sticky back, slipped it in place, and stuck it in there. So that's done. All of the floor planks are now in. The fuel tank is in and secured, but I haven't hooked up the fuel lines. You can see the 3/8 black rubber fuel hose coming up from underneath. That's my fuel line to the outboard. I need to actually pull it over and secure it, but it runs all the way under the floor planks and drops out the backside over here. So again, I detailed the inside. That's all done now. All the floor planks are in. The thing's just like a mirror, and it's got a light coating of dust from sitting in here in the garage. Very light. You can see it up here on the bow, so, but it's like a mirror. So then we've got the transom bands installed as well, and I've got this contraption here. These are some leftover 2-inch by 1/4-inch deck planks, but they bow pretty decently, but put a decent amount of pressure. So I used again the 3M VHB tape. I applied that tape all the way down the back sides of them. And again, the only 2 screws that actually hold it to the boat are here and here. So I put those 2 screws in, peeled that tape, stuck it to the side of the boat, and then I'm using, you can see it's not actually touching the corner here. I'm using a tie strap around my trailer, pulled in tight, but not touching the paint. Bowed that thing around to keep the bottom half tight. Bowed it on around, and then there's a tie strap between the two holding pressure. So basically I'm getting pressure from about the mid-weight down, and this VHB is supposed to sit for about 3 days with pressure on it. So I think at a day and a half I'll probably loosen the bottom straps, tighten the upper strap, and put pressure on the top half for another day and a half on both sides. So they're on. Got the steer cable back through the transom now, through the motor well side. Look at that thing. Look at it. Look at it. So anyhow, super pretty. We've got the forward controls installed. Cables ran through the armrests. They're all at the back of the boat now. But just super pretty. And like a mirror. So that's where we are. Made really good progress for 2 days, for a weekend. We'll just continue on installing things. I think the next step's going to be my fuel hose, which is sitting up here from the fuel fill down to the tank. I've got to do my breather line, and then I'll connect my 5/16 fuel hose to the outboard, and then the tank will be done. I'm waiting to put the seat bases in until I get all the under dash and all of the wiring stuff done back here, because it makes basically a nice wide open place to lay down and crawl around and wire stuff. Once I've got all of the fuel tank connections done, I can put the front seat base in, and then when I finish the rear light and a couple of terminations underneath here, then I can put the rear seat base in. But I'm waiting again. The front light has been terminated. Wires poked up in there, terminated and connected, so it's done. But that's where we are. So pretty. Okay, just a real quick update. I went to the dollar store and picked up a duster and dust off the surface of the boat, so now it's like a freaking mirror again, dust free. Looks really, really good. You can see this stuff here, all of my little cars up on the wall reflecting in it. So it's like a mirror. And again, the finish isn't perfect. I mean, it's not flawless. It's not without flaws. There's dust in it here and there, but I'm pretty dang happy with it. Pretty happy with it. Plenty enough to get me through this summer. So one thing that I've done here, I installed my little stainless pedo cap. Look at the reflection in that thing. Anyhow, a little stainless pedo hose cap. I've got that installed. 5200 on the screws and ran those in. It'll come up to this side. Look at that thing. I don't know how well you'll be able to see or not, but we now have our 5/16 fuel hose connected. That little barb, I had to run to like 3 different stores in town looking for 45 minutes to find it's a 1/4-inch male pipe NPT fitting by 5/16 hose barb. Little brass fitting. To find that thing took me for freaking ever, but I got that. So our 1/4-inch fuel line's connected. Again, our 1.5-inch fuel fill up to the deck fill up here on the top, that is connected. So that hose is on. And then our breather hose back here, although it's hard to see, that's connected as well. And we installed the through hole fitting out here. Now, a lot of people, look at the gloss, look at it. A lot of people had something to say about this through hole fitting. You can't use that for a fuel breather. Well, I'm gonna. But I did take a few people's advice. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, maybe, maybe not. We'll try to get it to focus in there. Yeah, it doesn't want to focus. Yep, there you can barely see it. There's a screen inside there. I went and bought a piece of stainless screen and permanently attached that inside the hole to keep critters from crawling inside the boat. So that eliminates one problem with using a through hole for a fuel vent. Critters crawling up into your tank and making nests and what have you. So that's cured. We now have that stainless screen in there. On top of that, inside the hose, hit focus. There we go. Inside that hose, probably about 4 inches up from that bulkhead, I machined a little brass plug, 5/8 inch outside diameter, about 3/4 of an inch long, with a 1/8 inch hole through the dead center of it. That's all it is, just a slug of brass with an 1/8 inch hole all the way through it. And I took that and I shoved that up inside that hose and then ran a zip tie around the middle of it to kind of pinch it in place on the hose. And I did that for a secondary reason. If I do take a splash out here and water does go through that, obviously it'll go through the screen without a problem. But let's say, again, I ran my hose uphill about 4 or 5 inches before it crests over into the tank. So we take a big splash, water gets through the screen, it goes up the hose, but then it hits that slug, and its only path through there is an 1/8 inch hole. So much less likely to get water into the tank, because now it has to go through an even smaller hole. So if I do take a splash and I do get water in the tank, it's going to be minuscule compared to that 5/8 gigantic hole that it was. So that's installed as well. And because there's a hole, the tank can still breathe. You know, it's not going to be an issue there. But that's where we're at now, making good progress. And we'll update you again soon. Okay, so a whole bunch more progress to go over. You can see right up here, we've built and installed our stainless bow cap. matches right into the cutwater, caps the tip of the bow. Just looks really, really nice. So I got that built, welded up, ground down, polished out, and installed. Here's a little template that I made for it. You can see some lines on here. I was drawing whether or not I wanted my my rub rail to come across it. Ultimately, I decided against that, but that's my pattern for it. 4 screws hold it to the boat. It's removable if it needs to be. And speaking of rub rail, we now have the rub rail installed. You can see where I decided to end it. Looks really, really nice down the side of the boat. It's down both sides and done. And you can see how it fits back here to our transom band. I'll try to get close. It's hard to tell, but it's cut out to fit around that. So this is not a stainless rub rail. It is not. What it actually is, we'll come over here and look. What it is, throw my template down, is this right here. Cowles Custom Chrome. This is 1/2 inch width. It is 3M backed, so the adhesive on it is 3M, genuine 3M. That's what it is. This is what I made my rub rails out of. A lot of people use stainless. I could have went with stainless. However, the way I look at it, I kind of like the seamless look with no screws. Obviously, stainless, you have to screw to the side of the boat. And this is a sacrificial piece. If for some reason, you know, I bump into something, maybe I didn't get my fenders put in the right place, and I bump into something, it scars it up. You know, if that were a stainless strip, you know, let's say it's a 14-foot, 4-inch boat. Let's say that's a 15, 16-foot piece of stainless right there. Yeah, that's probably $300 that you just dinged up. You know, I suppose you could take it out and try to beat the dents out of it and polish it, but in my opinion, this is sacrificial. If it gets scarred up 2 or 3 years down the road, I can just grab it, peel it off. For $18, I bought enough to do the entire boat, 2 rolls of that, and I'll just roll on a new piece and stick it to it. So I just basically stuck it around there. I stuck it right at the height of my end grain of the subdeck. So that completely hides it. Now again, I don't care if the screws show. I wasn't attempting to hide the screws, but I was definitely hiding the plywood end grain of the subdeck. Cut off right there at my my cap, my bow cap. And we'll follow it on down. Oh, it's so pretty. And then back here at the end, I just cut it at the same angle to match the transom band, and I cut an 1/8 inch step out of the bottom so it fits right around the transom band. Really, really nice. Looks great. As you can see, we've got the outboard on. I would say it's 99.9% installed. The last thing I have to do is just slip my bolts through the lower holes. I have the bolts. They're stainless. The holes are drilled. The motor's snugged up. Everything's connected to it. I just haven't put the bolts in, so that's one of the last steps. Forward, reverse, and throttle cables are installed, connected. Tilt tube, push-pull steering cables connected. In the last little bit of the video, I showed this, but I didn't talk about it. The stainless motor well cutout cap is installed. Brand new fuel hose is installed. Brand new Merc fuel quick connector is installed. We'll come around to this other side. Oh, all of the motor wells, bulkheads, all of my bulkheads are installed. The motor needs a polish, and it's kind of dusty and dull looking. There is my steer bulkhead, the new one that we built. Looks super awesome. Again, brand new fuel hose, brand new connector, brand new 8-gauge positive, negative wires for the starter. This orange here is my signal for the tack. It's hooked up. And then the main bundle below is the actual outboard harness to the controls. So that's all done. Motor's connected, steering's connected. I tested it just to make sure everything cranks over as it should, and it does. So then we come into the back. Here's our primer bulb. You can see my cables. Fuel pump. Now this is not a normal thing. This is just a 12-volt automotive fuel pump, and basically it's what I'm going to use to prime instead of the primer bulb. The primer bulb will be there for an emergency backup if something fails, But, you know, it's behind the seat, so if you need to use it, you'll have to drop the seat, prime the bulb, put the seat back up. But 99% of the time, I'm going to use this fuel pump right here. Again, 12-volt automotive. So my fuel, 5/16, and I've called this hose a million different sizes. It is a 5/16 fuel hose. Comes out from under the planks into the pump, out of the pump, into the primer bulb, through the primer bulb, and up to the outboard. So I wired this to a circuit that was in the boat. Wires were pulled, but I wasn't using. So if we come up here, and you'll have to ignore the sirens. So this is my key switch. When we turn this on, all of the needles on the gauges will move just slightly. You can see the voltmeter go up. So that's in the on position, right? Now, what I did was, this has a spring-loaded start position, but since the outboard has its own key down here, which I decided to use, I had an additional start position circuit already fused, already pulled to the back of the boat, and no real use for it. So when I get ready to take this thing out to the water, what I'm going to do, crawl in here, turn this key on, all my gauges come on, and when you hit the spring-loaded position, you'll hear that fuel pump. Just like that. So I'll use that to prime the boat. So I don't know if that's illegal. I don't know if you're supposed to do that or not, but it made a lot of damn sense to me, so I did. Again, everything's fused just like it should be. All of my connections are done back here. In fact, let's just reach over and pull on the light switch. There it is. So there's our all-around light glowing. It's hard to tell, but it is glowing. You may or may not be able to see all the dash lights are on. And then we'll come around up here. There you can see our bow light is on. So all of our lighting is done. All of our electrical connections are done. Everything's just in pretty good shape. All the fuel's done. All of the outboard's done. Yeah, that's where we are. Really, really impressed with this chrome strip, rub rail, whatever you want to call it. Really happy with it. I mean, super easy to apply. I started sticking it down, peeling the backing, and then had my son hold the roll and just lead me around, and I just kept sticking it just like I did for masking off. I just used the same line. Hides that end grain, looks pretty, fits the boat well. So again, a lot of progress on this weekend. We'll update you when more is made. Well, we now have the sub box and subwoofers installed, terminated, and thoroughly tested. I'm sure much to my neighbor's dismay. There's a look at it again. And just like before, you know, everything just dropped right in like it should. Stainless bolts hold it down to the T-nuts in the floor. A little bit of blue Loctite on each bolt to keep them from rattling loose. And we'll come along to the back side here. Again, there's a look at the box from the back. Yeah, fits good, looks good, sounds great, and huge progress. Take a look at that. I located my windshield brackets and cut out some 1/4-inch marine ply templates. So we had something amazing happen here yet again. The port template and the starboard template are exactly the same. They are 100% interchangeable. They are identical. Couldn't believe it. The curve on the top of this is the exact same curve as the bottom of the deck. It's the exact same curve of the deck. So that's how I came up with that. This little round here, I used a Mother's Mag and aluminum polish can to draw that circle. This round out here is I used the bottom of one of my tiny epoxy mix cups to draw that circle. Now this is actually going to get slid up about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. I ordered my bottom rubber seal for the windshields, and when you slip that on there, that's going to raise the windshield about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. So it doesn't look like it right now. There's actually a rounded corner right here, and that'll be raised up another 1/4 to 3/8 on each side and in the middle. But that's where we are. So let's talk about some dimensions, because if you're building a zip, you're going to want to know. From the tip of my windshield bracket to the tail end of my deck cleat, that's 7.5 inches. 7.5 inches. So then coming around to this side, from the face of my dash, this line right here, it is 6.25 inches from this edge to the trailing edge of the windshield bracket. 6.25 inches. Now, keep in mind my dash, my deck overhangs the dash 1/2 inch, and that's also an additional 1 inch thick dash over frame, what is that, frame 4? So, if that helps you out at all. But the important measurement, 6.25 from this face to the trailing edge right here. So that's how I located that. Again, it's dead center of my king plank. Now the outside brackets, and again, they need to be final polished. They're not done yet. This is just preliminary polish on them. From measuring from this edge to the inside of my cockpit edge here of the carling, that's 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Same up here on this bracket here, on the front of the bracket is 1/2 inch measuring from here over to my white line. So that shows you where those are located, 1/2 inch from the inside edge. Measuring from this point right here, this edge, back to this corner of my cockpit, both sides, 23 inches on the money. From this corner to the trailing edge of the bracket. So that should, that should give you every measurement you need to know if you're building a zip. You know, where I located my brackets may not be where you locate them, but it'll give you a place to start. But I'm very, very happy with the look of the windshields. Try to go up a little bit higher. I think it looks great. So, down in that box are 2 pieces of Lexan. I now have my templates, so I can cut out my Lexan. Tomorrow, my rubber gasket material for the bottom of the windshields should show up via UPS. And I'll have everything to complete the windshield on this boat at that point. So my next step is going to be to pull the templates out, transfer the templates to the Lexan, cut the Lexan, sand all the edges, pull the brackets one more time, do the final polish on them, install the brackets for the last time, cut my seal for the bottom to length, and I've marked this plywood exactly where it needs to be so I can poke the gasket on there and based off my line use that to cut the gasket so I know it's a perfect fit. But anyhow, get the gaskets cut, slipped on the new Lexan windshield, and bolt everything back in place, and whoom bam, we got a windshield. So we're making fantastic progress. I again ran the duster over this thing just so it looked pretty for the video, but that's where we are. We're knocking things off the list with a quickness. We are making fantastic progress. Not a whole heck of a lot left to do on this zip. Okay, real quick update. We did change something. If you look here on this windshield, you can see the straight line. It's not actually straight. It's the same curve as the deck. So that was the old patterns that I had in there. And it, even though it matches the curve, matches the deck, it just didn't look right to me. So this is the Lexan. It's cut. It's still got the protective plastic on both sides of it. But it's cut to fit in there, and as you can see, we've now modified it a bit just to add some more curve on the top. And I just think, personally, I think it just looks better. Just looks better, something about it. So anyhow, that's where we are. Got that cut, and our rubber seal showed up today. So getting ready to peel the bottom half inch of this or so, peel that protective cover up, slip on the rubber seal, cut it to the overall length, put the glass back in and double check that everything fits, make any needed adjustments, and then we'll be ready to pull the brackets, polish them, and do the final install on everything. So again, change the shape just a little bit, but I'm happier with it now. I just personally think it looks better. And here's a look at it now with the Lexan installed and the little rubber gasket down on the bottom. Everything's test fit. Turned out really, really nice. Again, I don't know. It's hard to see the curve or the arch because they're so clear, but very, very happy with it. Talk about a freaking contortionist act to get those pieces of Lexan in there. Fighting the rubber on the bottom. It took me and my son quite a bit of an effort. You got to hook it over in this bracket, shove everything down, and hold this glass tight to the bottom while you do the same to the other side. And with one guy holding one and one guy holding the other, you got to free up one hand to start some screws and snug everything up and put the front screw in all at the same time. You got to be, I swear, a contortionist octopus to make it happen. But they're in. Fit looks great. Gasket looks great. You know, there's a look at the gasket fit. Yeah, turned out really good. So now that everything's fit up, and there's a better look at it. There you can see it pretty good. Now that everything's fit up, we've got to pull the brackets, pull the glass back out, or Lexan, pull the brackets, do the final polish on them, reinstall them, and then reinstall the Lexan for the last time, and the windshield's done. So that's where we're at. Very, very happy with the look. I bought 10 feet of this gasket material, and there's actually enough to do the seals twice out of 10 feet. So that's pretty cool anyhow. That's where we are, making good progress. All right, another weekend has passed, and man, do we have a bunch of ground to cover. So as you can see, we've got our 6-inch LED ovals hooked up and wired. All the wiring is officially done, permanent. However, I ran out of zip ties, so all the way down the trailer, you can see that red tape. That's holding my wires in place until I get more zip ties. But the wires are on, functions, everything's done correctly. Everything functions as it should. Huge milestone. Lots and lots of people have been waiting for this, so there it is. That is my Zip's name, the Prolysync. Now, say it again slowly. Prolysync. It's my first boat build. I figure it's probably going to sink. So that's the Zip's name. Hope you guys like it. I love it. I've had this name picked out actually years before I was going to build the Zip, or before I did build the Zip. I was just going to build a plywood piece of crap to take out and crab out of in the bay. And that was what I was going to name that other boat, the Prolysync. And it just stuck in my head. I absolutely love it. I think it's cute. Hopefully the boat doesn't live up to its name. Oh, so what else? We've got our stainless bolts installed, tightened down. So the motor's 100% done and installed. I did apply some silicone on the bolts before I slipped them into the already epoxied holes just to make sure they're sealed, but will come out again someday. Again, there's the other trailer light. You can see I've got the rear straps holding it down to the trailer. I'm going to get longer straps, and I'll go diagonally from this loop down to that D-ring, and same from this side, from here over to here. Right now, this really doesn't keep the boat from moving left to right on the trailer. It just kind of keeps it from going too far backward. So yesterday, I pulled this outside, and for the first time ever, fired up the Merc. Again, it needs a bath. It's gross looking. But anyhow, I fired up the Mercury on the boat for the first time ever. Everything worked as it should. My tack worked just like it should. However, I had it on the wrong setting, the wrong pole setting. I had it set on number 1, and it looks like number 4 was actually a better setting. When it was sitting there idling, according to the tack, it was idling at 4,500 RPM, which I knew wasn't right. So I just started playing with that adjustment. And on the 4-pole setting, it looks like I'm idling around 1,200 RPM, and I think that's pretty accurate. It's okay if it's a little high. I just don't want to be a little low and over rev the engine. But I have a mechanical tack I'll put up here on top of the flywheel with the outboard running, just so I can confirm that the 4-pole setting is accurate and the tack is reading what it's actually doing. So more stuff to cover. We now have the seats. We have the seats installed, the seat bases and seats. So it is super, super pretty. Here's a look at the front seat, all the stitching. That turned out really well. My ignition switch, I guess, start position for the primer, that turned out to work well. To get fuel from the tank back to the boat, I thought I was going to have to pull the fuel hose and put it in the coffee can and use this to use the key switch and the electric fuel pump to prime the line. I ended up not having to do that. It primed the line by itself without even disconnecting it, so the fuel pump's working fine. Take a look at that on the dash. It's hard to see, but we got Burke's Craft on there. I had those stickers made up when I had the Polysync name made up. I also have some on the sides of the boat. We got Burke's Craft down the side in chrome. I think it looks real nice. So, yeah. I mean, we are 99% done with the zip now. Just really, there's the Burke's Craft. Look at it. So pretty. So pretty. I'll drop down the side. You can see the Burke's Craft right there on the side. Isn't that awesome looking? So today, you know, there's been one question that's been looming in my head since I started building this boat, and that was, can I get the damn thing down my driveway? I have a very, very steep driveway, and I wasn't sure how that was going to work. So today, the reason I have the rear tie straps on, I hooked it up to my truck, and I was able to get it down my driveway, backed around, turned around. I took it for about a 20-minute drive just to see how the trailer tracked, how it pulled, you know, if it felt like I was over or under on my tongue weight. Right now it's got about 150 pounds of tongue weight. It seemed to pull just fine. The Tacoma barely even knew it was there. So I think we're about right. And again, I did put fuel in the tank. I don't know. Yeah, you can see the dark line down there. So it's got about a third of a tank. When I run this thing, I only plan on running 6 gallons, or about half a tank. What else did we do? We have welded our bow stop down. I used to have clamps on there temporarily. That's officially welded down now, and the clamps are gone. We got our front strap hooked up, our winch line, and I'm going to do a safety chain somewhere around here that'll come up and clip into this as well when I'm trailering, so you're not relying on the rope. But that's where we are. Really, really, really close to getting her put in the water. Really close. So I have to take a home builder's piece of paper down and sign it and have it notarized, and then that gets sent off to the State Marine Board, who hopefully will issue me a title and I can register the boat, and then we'll have our registration numbers up here with the Oregon sticker. So that's where we are. One other thing, I put fuel in this thing up here. Well, I got a little overexcited with the fuel. I was using that can down there, which I think is a 6 or 7 gallon can, 6 gallon can. And I had just enough mix oil left over, the mercury synthetic, to mix up 5 gallons. And again, I mixed it a little rich. You know, it's probably like 35 to 40 to 1, something like that. Just because I'd rather be rich than lean. You know, if you're running your outboard a 2-stroke, or any 2-stroke, if you're running it rich, the worst thing that happens is you foul plugs. You run it lean, the worst thing that happens is you smoke the motor. So I'd much rather replace spark plugs because I'm a little rich than throw away the outboard because I burn it up running lean. Anyhow, so we're roughly 40 to 1 on the fuel oil ratio. So I mixed that can up with non-ethanol. That's all I run in any of my older carbureted engines. And I was climbing up the ladder here and filling the tank. Good news. Got some great news. This varnish apparently is gasoline resistant. And I know because I got a little overexcited filling the tank with fuel up here, and I spilled some gas. And when I say some, I don't mean like a drop or two or, you know, even a little puddle. I mean, I dumped cups of gas on the deck. It was running off the sides of the shear line. I mean, I dumped a large amount of fuel on the deck. And again, you can see the finish. It's no worse for the wear at all. I mean, it's like nothing even happened. So apparently, the captain's varnish is gasoline, we'll call it resistant. Of course, I immediately cleaned it up, followed by large amounts of 4-letter words, but no worse for the wear. When I was done, I sprayed some water, squirted some water on the deck, and then just dried everything off. So that's where we are. Just a few little things to button up. Making good progress. All right, there's the rope. Tie us off, buddy. Tie us off to the dock. Nice, look at that. Okay, untie us. And we're off. Good job. All right, one more time, one more time. You ready? There's the rope. Oh, geez, we're sinking. Oh, we're going down. It's all over. It's all over. Okay, there's the rope. Tie us off. Pull her down tight. Whack, whack. Nice job. Look at that. Okay, untie us. Perfect. Hey, let's get that rear bumper on. Rear bumper. Very nice. Good job. Okay, pull the bumper and stow it.
Does that take it off?
Yes, sir. Nice job, dude. Totally got it. We're ready. We're ready. So, it is officially June 1st, 2018. For the month of May 2018, we went up 48.5 hours. So that is by far the most hours I've ever put into the zip in a single month since we started. 48.5. Pretty happy with that. We went up $426.50 this month. That 48.5 hours, new category, all of that was on assembly. So I just spent this entire month assembling the zip, 48.5 hours. So that 48.5 hours, that brings us to a total hours into the zip of 1,037.75 hours into building the zip. And the $426.50, that brings us up to $11,229.45 invested into the zip. So let's take a look and see where we're at. So a couple of just quick details. As you can see, there is a zip tie between this motor clamp and this motor clamp. So what I did was I spun those around until they were tight on both sides, and then I flipped the handle of the clamp so that when I put a zip tie between it and tighten it, it's actually tightening both of those handles so that they can't vibrate loose. Now, of course, the outboard is bolted to the transom, but that's just one more little bit of added security to ensure that, you know, things don't get loose and vibrate and fall apart. So I did that. I took our existing straps that I had on the back of the transom. They were actually long enough to make this crisscross pattern. So I don't think I'll have to buy any more straps. So that's done. What else do we do? As you can see, there's now zip ties on the trailer. The trailer needs washed. No more red tape, but you can see the zip ties. And then I wire loomed all of this stuff up, the visible stuff, and clear up in here where the wires run across the frame. That's all wire loomed up and looks nice and officially zip tied and done. So that's complete. Let's see, we'll go up inside here. I made a little lanyard, this little guy right here, to Velcro to my belt loop onto the kill switch, or my arm. I haven't really made up my mind yet, but just a kill switch, so, you know, maybe I get a little wicked crazy in this thing, crank the wheel, and slide across the boat and knock myself out. It'll at least kill the outboard so it doesn't do, you know, mock shitty into a rock somewhere and destroy the boat on top of being knocked unconscious. So that's on there. I also made this little lanyard for my key switch, which Velcros over here, so I can take it off, but if the key happens to fall out or get knocked out, at least it doesn't fall down in the crack out in the middle of the lake and I try to disassemble the boat, you know, with a stick and a Bowie knife or whatever. So that just keeps the key, you know, keeps the key from disappearing. I made this little, I don't know what you want to call it, key chain thing for the ignition switch, for the key. I don't know, it just kind of looks good. Up underneath the dash, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but we'll go under there. There it is. So that little white with blue topped container velcros to the bottom of my batten under there. It's up out of the way, it's dry. But inside of that thing, that's a watertight container that floats. Inside of it is a spare key for the boat, in case I lose this ignition key. And again, this key only runs the electrical half. The actual starting key is down here. But there's a spare key up here for this inside that. There's also the fuel fill, deck fill key for opening the deck fill is inside there. My temporary paperwork, I did go file all of that paperwork with the State Marine Board and paid my fee, and with any luck in 4 weeks or so I'll have a title for this thing. It was actually relatively painless if everything goes according to plan. But so my temporary, which is good for 60 days, says you can legally run the boat for 60 days. That's wrapped up inside there. And then also I have a little 64 gig USB, I don't know what you want to call it, memory stick, although it's super, super tiny. I've got that up inside there as well with 30 some gigs of music on it if I don't want to use my phone. So that's inside that little white watertight container as well. So anyhow, that's where we're at. Pretty darn close to done. Pretty darn close to done. Come on, guys. I wouldn't do that to you. You know I put this thing in the water, right? There's no way I was going to get the boat this close and not put it in the water. So here's some on the water clips. I hope you enjoyed. Hope some of you out there were like, God damn it, what the fuck? So enjoy. Again, there'll be some more. There'll be at least one more zip update. I have still some minute work to do here and there on it, but we're 99.921% done. So enjoy the on the water shots.
Oh, I just saw it pick its toes up.
All right, behind you, grab that round knob, pull it all the way out, back in. Hit 9 more times.